You can make a cozy hat and mittens for your doll. It's a fun, fast, and easy project. Here's what you'll need. 1/4 of a yard of knit fabric, or you can upcycle a sweater or other knit shirt. Polyester polar fleece is a great fabric to make this project fast, fun, and easy. You will also need coordinating polyester thread, a sewing machine or hand sewing needle. You can also embellish your hat with ribbons, buttons, felt flowers, or anything else you'd like to use. You can download the pattern sheet for this project from our website. It's free. Click the link in the video or in the notes below. To make the mittens, cut 4 squares of fabric using the dashed box on the pattern sheet as a guide. For the wristbands of the mittens, you can cut either 4 squares measuring 2 inches by 2 inches, or if you're using a recycled sweater and have some pre-finished edging from the bottom of the sweater or sleeves, cut 4 rectangles measuring 2 inches by 3/4 inch using the finished edging as one of the longer 2-inch sides. Next, make a fabric sandwich with 2 squares of fabric right sides together. Make sure to align the fabric squares so that they stretch in the same direction and in the direction indicated on the pattern. Cut out the mitten template from your pattern sheet and pin it to the center of your fabric sandwich. Using the paper template as a guide, sew around the mitten shape, starting at one black dot and finishing at the other, making sure to backstitch a few times at the beginning and end of the seam. Again, using the template as a guide, trim away the excess fabric sandwich, cutting close to your sewing line. If you are using a knit that will fray, you can go over the seam you just sewed with a short, narrow zigzag stitch to keep the inside of the mitten neat and make it more durable. If you are using fleece fabric, you can skip the zigzag. You will not need to finish any of the edges. Very carefully snip a V between the thumb and fingers, taking care not to snip into your stitching. Next, turn your mitten right side out. If you are using new fabric, fold one of the 2x2 squares in half, wrong sides together. Align the raw edge with one side of the bottom of the mitten and pin. Sew in place with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Be sure not to catch the other bottom side of the mitten as you sew, which would close up the wrist opening. I found it easiest to fold the other side of the mitten back and sew from the inside of the mitten. Trim the seam allowance to a scant 1/8 inch. Repeat with a second 2x2 wristband piece, sewing the other side of the mitten. Turn your mitten inside out again and pin. Sew the open sides of the mitten closed. See the white dotted line in the picture. Backstitching several times at the wrist openings to secure the seam. Turn your mitten right side out and admire your work. Repeat steps to make the second mitten. Now let's make the hat. Using the printed pattern as a guide, cut 5 panels of fabric or recycled sweater for your hat, plus 1 rectangle for your hat band. If you are using new fabric, your hat band rectangle should measure 10.5 inches by 2 inches. If you are using a recycled sweater and have enough finished edge available, cut your rectangle 10.5 inches by 1 inch, using the finished edge for one of the long sides. Next, pin 2 of the hat panels together, right sides facing. Sew along one long side with a 1/4 inch seam allowance as indicated by the white dotted line in the picture. Pin a third panel to the 2 you just sewed together, right sides facing, and again sew along one long side. Continue in this fashion until all 5 panels are sewn together. Fold your hat in half, right side in, aligning the long sides of the outermost 2 panels. Pin and sew the panels together, which finishes the crown of your hat. Trim seam allowances to a scant 1/8 inch. If you are using a knit fabric that will unravel or fray, stitch over each seam allowance with a short and narrow zigzag stitch to finish. This step is unnecessary if you are using polyester fleece. Next, fold the fabric rectangle for your hat band in half, right sides together, aligning the short ends. Sew the short ends together with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Trim the seam allowance to a scant 1/8 of an inch. If you're upcycling a sweater, this is all you've got to do. You'll use the circle you just sewed for your hat band. If you're using new fabric with no pre-finished edge, fold in half again lengthwise, wrong sides in, right sides out, creating the hat band. Finally, align and pin the raw edge of the hat band to the raw edge of the hat crown, right sides together. Sew the band to the crown with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, stretching the hat band slightly as you sew to fit it to the crown. Trim the seam allowance to a scant 1/8 of an inch and finish with a short and narrow zigzag if desired. Turn your hat right side out and you're finished. You can embellish your hat with buttons, ribbons, or flowers if you'd like. Or you can just leave it as it is. It's cute either way. Have fun making lots of cute hats and mittens for your dolls. Thanks for watching.